when you look at some of the challenges they face, and one of the interesting things that does come out of this research is that independent workers value their flexibility and love being independent, but they also understand that there are challenges associated with it. Uncertain income, worrying about the next job, unpredictable income streams tend to be the highest things that we hear from consistently the biggest challenges that we hear. But we also hear about lack of job security. Interestingly enough, with the baby boomers, you don't hear about lack of benefits to the degree that you hear about that in other age groups, particularly younger workers, Gen X and Gen Y. We do hear some about benefits, but once people have reached this stage, they either have a spouse that has benefits or some other mechanism for accessing benefits, or they've learned how to get their benefits packaged. So it's not quite as big an issue as the income issues. And we often refer to this whole set as something we call the burden of empowerment, and that is that becoming independent, our independent boomers feel very empowered by that. But at the same time, they have burdens that come with it about running their own lives. And the good news that comes through loudly in this research is that baby boomers in particular feel they have the skills, they have the background, and they have the abilities to be successful as independents and overcome these challenges to have a successful independent career. So when you look at this, both now and going forward, we have a whole series of factors that is driving the shift to independence and driving the kind of growth that we were talking about. The 5 million baby boomers growing in our forecast a little over 20% over the next 2 years, pretty substantial amounts of growth in terms of how quickly it's moving relative to how slowly employment change generally moves. And so I've talked already about work-life flexibility, but again, when you start forecasting this out over the next 3 to 5 years in terms of what's going to happen, this just becomes loud and clear. And as boomers age, they want more flexibility than they did before. And so as this cohort gets older, you talk to a 50-year-old boomer, and they want flexibility, but a 55 or 60-year-old boomer is starting to insist on flexibility. And so as we boomers, and I should point out front, if you couldn't guess from my picture with the gray hair, I am a baby boomer, and I feel it the same way. Every year I'm thinking I want more flexibility than I had last year. That's just the way the world works. The second thing that's a reality for us aging baby boomers is our job options are becoming more limited. Age discrimination is real. There's no question about it, and multiple studies have shown that. Companies are less likely to be interested in hiring us in a traditional employment environment, and of course the Great Recession has taken its toll. So when we look across our job options, for more and more baby boomers, independent work is going to be by far their best choice. They're more likely to get hired on by corporations as an independent worker and as a consultant, where the company does not have to worry about benefits, does not have to worry about a commitment, than they are getting full-time jobs. So what we're going to see, this lack of job options, even as the economy recovers, the shift that's going on to the contingent workforce, to companies hiring more part-timers, more consultants, is going to continue to be in place. And so therefore, boomer job options in terms of traditional jobs are going to continue to be limited, making this more popular. And then as we age into our traditional retirement years, that's when you start to hear about the desire to stay active. Older boomers are telling us this. Seniors 65 and above tell us this consistently. I want to stay active. I want to stay engaged. That helps me with my own personal life. I feel better about myself. And as our boomers get a little older, right now our oldest boomers are 65, sort of getting into that sort of traditional retirement age and past that, they're explaining this is a big part of why I want to stay work. I want to stay engaged in the community. So we'll see that continue as the cohort gets older. And it's not finally, but importantly, is our ability to go independent and to start our own business and to start a career as an independent worker. technology has just made it cheaper and easier than it has been in the past. And so it no longer takes a lot of money to get started. You're leveraging other assets, and we'll come back to that a little bit, that you've developed over the course of your life. And so it's not expensive and it's not risky. We're hearing from a lot of independent workers that the cash component, the investment component, is in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. And one of the reasons is that you already have in your home a lot of the technology you need to go forward in terms of internet access, computers, and so forth. So it's never been cheaper and easier to start an independent business than it is today. And there's a flip side to this, which is companies are now much more comfortable hiring independent workers. And I laugh. I started my independent work over a decade ago, and it just amazed me that I could get hired by major corporations around the world when I was working from my house. But already back a decade ago, the views of independent workers had shifted enough that they knew I could be a professional supplier, even though I didn't have a traditional job, a traditional firm, or even a traditional mailing address. And then finally, of course, I don't want to ignore the financial need. As boomers are reaching retirement age, the recession has taken a toll on us in terms of our financial assets, in terms of the value of our homes. And so we're going to see boomers need to extend their time in the workforce due to financial need, and that's also a reason why we'll see this shift to independence. So a wide range of drivers to the shift. And with that,
so Steve, that's great. Thank you for running through that. I just want to make sure everybody is aware that there is a report that is going to be released on Monday. It's a full report of this research, and I will tell you that this past week, Steve and I have participated in a summit in Washington, D.C., a Boomer Summit, of which there were many government officials, a lot of press. There's a lot of interest around this. And I have a couple of questions for Steve that came up at the conference, and I'm curious to get Steve's reaction to. But the Boomer demographic, has always been people that have wanted to make a change and be aggressive. And I'm curious, Steve, what do you think is the reason why this demographic is more, take charge of themselves, and why do they stick out in a more than an index further than the other age demographics? Is it part of that personality of that generation?
Yeah, it's interesting. Boomers, and it's always, as a researcher, you have advantages when you're talking about your own situation, and you have disadvantages. You're a little biased, but we Boomers, from very early on, we're going to change the world, and we're going to change the world to fit our needs, and we're going to change the world to fit what we were looking for out of life. And you go back, whether we're talking about the shifts in the 60s and the social shifts that we've seen throughout our age group, but whatever stage of life we've entered, we've changed things, and we've done things differently than the generations that have come before us, and we've done them much more differently than the generations that have come before us. And so as Boomers, as we're entering into our retirement stage, we're doing the same thing. We're saying, what do we want out of it? And what we want out of it is, traditionally Boomers have been interested, this whole idea of activity, this whole idea of learning, this whole idea about giving back are all things that Boomers are very interested in, and independent work and gives us both the ability to give back like that and the ability to stay involved and to stay active, while at the same time giving us the flexibility that we're now looking for. And for a lot of Boomers, work has been all-consuming or near all-consuming, and we're ready to try new things. And I think that's a fundamental difference from the generations before us, in many ways entering retirement. They were ready to stop, whereas we want to take advantage of that time and do something new. But at the same time, we are interested in continuing work as something new. So when you look at these people, they want to work, but they don't want to go just do exactly what they were doing before. They want to take advantage of their skills to do new things, to approach it differently, to do it in a more flexible manner. So there's a lot of under the hood, a lot of social drivers in the way we are as boomers that's making this happen.
Great. Well, thanks, Steve. And I'm going to move us to the next section of our remarks here on the webinar, which basically to talk about, why now? What's really going on overall in our economy and in our workforce that's causing this surge of independent work. So, Steve mentioned some of this as a result of the research, but I would say primarily the number one issue is the dramatic change in technology has accelerated this trend. Technology, be it mobile, cloud, and social, have allowed people to work remotely, removing the need for geography for people to be working at an office, enables people to collaborate from anywhere, enables people to do work while they're traveling through mobile. And that is obviously one of the major accelerators. The other is, for this generation, they have the ability to leverage a lot of great experience. Most of the people entering the baby boom or in the baby boom, which I think every day there's about, what is it, Steve, 10,000 more every day are
reaching 65.
Reaching 65. So there's and the total is what, about 75 or 80 million?
About 80 million,
yeah,
in total.
So there's a tremendous amount of people that have great experience. They grew up during the the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the height of the technological revolution of the PC, and there's most of our large organizations have built systems during those years. They got a tremendous amount of expertise, tremendous amount of experience with the systems that they've been working with. They have institutional knowledge. They're at a point now where they could start leveraging that and selling that either back to institutions that were using them as employees or other institutions that want to take advantage of that skill set. The third item is the rise of what we call the project economy. And certainly this has also been accelerated through the recent years of economic turmoil with what's known as the Great Recession. And this is a result of organizations, primarily in the private sector, companies, that have had to adapt the way they do business, where they are working much more on a project basis than traditionally they have. And they need to do that because of the rate of change, the competition, the new business models evolving, the fact that we're absolutely in a global economy and competing with organizations all over the world. So companies have realized that in order for them to be agile and basically reinvent themselves on an ongoing basis, the work they do needs to be cut up into smaller pieces, given out into project-based statements of work or areas of expertise, and whether they outsource them to a company or to an individual consultant or expert, that is a very good way for them to get work done quickly, easily, less expensively, but most importantly, giving them the ability to adapt quickly to change. And we call that the project economy, which by itself has created a tremendous amount of opportunity for independent workers regardless of their demographic of age. But certainly for this group of 70 to 80 million people that have a tremendous amount of intellectual capital that could be leveraged upon.